Hi guys, it's Jessica, and I just wanted to say happy Valentine's Day week or happy Lupercalia week for my pagan friends. And in honor of the season of love, I thought it would be fun for me to go ahead and share something that I really love in storytelling. I want to talk about the game Final Fantasy X. Some of you may not know this, but I love open world video games. I love when there's a story and a plot going on. Between the visual components, the voice acting, the music, and then a good old-fashioned story. It's just so easy to be drawn in. And to me, Final Fantasy is at the very top of the list of games that do this well. They often have a very strong story, they have multiple characters with different plot lines going on. Traditionally, they have multiple endings, although Final Fantasy X in specific is one of the first in the genre to have just one ending. And I think it actually makes it a much stronger story, because it is Valentine's Day week, or Lupercalia week, and because I love everything about this video game so much, I just really wanted to share it. I'm so excited to dive into this with you guys. I went ahead, I created my own Final Fantasy X character. I'm going to be Minerva. My little Cait Sith is going to be an owl. Got my owl earring and my owl jewelry going on. And I'm going to do black magic and also be a thief. So this is my own crazy Final Fantasy X dress-up outfit just for this video, just for this. Oh, I love it though. I like the kind of immersion and getting involved in the story. Final Fantasy X in particular is a great game for this because it is the first game they brought to 3D. It's one of the first games that has full voice acting involved. And it is a game where the creators had a very specific story they wanted to tell. There isn't alternate endings in this one. It's all in on the Tidus and Yuna story. And fans really responded to it. In fact, we all love this story so much when it first came out and its ending that we wanted more. And for the first time ever, Square Enix created a sequel called Final Fantasy X-2, which I also love, but we're not going to talk about today. And it answers some of the questions and the unresolved plot threads that are in the original. Something I will say about this video game is part of the reason it hit me so strongly is it's something from my youth. So as a teenager, this kind of story, this was the first time I'd heard this kind of story. The way the story is presented, where you are interacting, you are pretending to be this person, really helps bring more commitment and more element into this. It really makes you feel like part of it. So I wanted to talk about Final Fantasy X specifically from a storytelling perspective, a visual, audio, media perspective, and also a gameplay perspective, just to explain what is so awesome about each one of these sections and why you should go out and get this remake ASAP. It is on so many different consoles. You can play it on computer, you can play it on almost any video game console right now, the HD remaster, and it's beautiful. It's one of my top five favorite video games. And it's probably in my top 15 favorite stories too. If I had to pick just strong characters, strong narrative beats in general, this would be one of my favorites. To further break it down, I'm going to talk about structure, characters, and overall plot lines. And I'm probably going to end up mixing the characters and the plot lines together because in this game they go together very seamlessly. Starting with structure. Final Fantasy X has a non-linear storytelling method. It actually starts out with an introduction that's sort of somber and sad, and then brings us back to where the story began. Let me play the introduction to Final Fantasy X for you.
listen to my story. This may be our last chance.
As you can see, this introduction is more of a trailer or a teaser than it is a book summary, but I do think you can take elements from this and learn about the media this way. So in this case, we know that Tidus is going to be our narrator, so this story is going to be first person's perspective, and it's going to be about Tidus. I said the story was told non-linearly, and that's not entirely true. We get this little taste that's kind of the middle of the game here in the beginning, where we can see that Tidus is with a group of people. They seem to have gone through a series of traumatic events. It feels like a calm before the storm, or maybe even a mourning period after a battle. We're not quite sure yet at this point, but we know that something momentous has happened, and we know we're going to be part of it soon. So they show us this, and we know that we have to work our way to it, and immediately we flash into where Tidus thinks the story should start, which has him in a bustling city. It's very modern, it's bright and colorful. It has a bunch of high-tech machina and other kinds of interesting fantasy elements in it. It has a lot of people dressed very fashion-y. It doesn't seem like their clothing has a lot of purpose to it. And it also shows that they're really into this sport that involves, it's a sport called blitzball, and it involves having a floating orb of water in the air as an arena, and the players swim through it and you throw a ball to get goals, basically. But just the fact that there's a force field holding the water in a sphere, there's players all around the arena, there's some kind of equipment that's doing all these close-ups in the water of the characters. The characters have either been modified to be able to hold their breath for an extremely long period of time, or they have some kind of breathing apparatus, or maybe these people aren't humans and they just can breathe underwater. I don't know. It's never explained. It's one of the mysteries of Final Fantasy X that you kind of have to just roll with. But either way, it shows a lot of technical advances that suggest that if this is set in our world, or if it's set in a world that's like ours, they're significantly more sophisticated than we are. And they seem to be in a time of relative stability. If you can be into a sport that takes this much technology, that's this frivolous, things have to be going good for your society. So that's very interesting from a setting standpoint. And it's also interesting because it tells us where Tidus, the character, is coming from. He's coming from a life that's been pretty stable and that hasn't had a lot of hardship that he has to get over. He's a blitzball player himself. It's a father legacy scenario. And there's certain kind of elements about that too, where you can just see that Tidus's life has been incredibly privileged and that his own success has sort of been like paved by his family. He's like in a dynasty of blitzball players. And it's true that Tidus is also interesting. He doesn't seem to like his father. The animosity Tidus has between him and his dad and why he hates his dad is an ongoing theme in Final Fantasy. And I think it's really powerful because taking a traditional relationship, like a father-son loving relationship, and flipping it on its head right out the gate immediately draws people in. We want to know, why doesn't this guy like his dad? Is his dad a killer? Is he abusive? What terrible thing has his father done? And if his dad hasn't done anything that terrible, then like what kind of little brat is Tidus? We need to know. We need to know right away. And it's exciting to get that kind of hook immediately in a game or in a story. So we go from like this kind of abandoned, beautiful, mildly haunting setting into a very modern, high-tech setting. And it makes us ask a lot of questions, like, what happened to all of this technology? What happened to all the people and the cities? what happened to these cheering crowds and fans. And I think that's perfect for an interactive story. It draws you in right away and makes you feel a connection and a curiosity and the sense of exploration and adventure. The other thing too is we don't know the characters very well yet, so all by themselves the characters aren't going to be enough to pull us in. We have to kind of rely on the colors, the different contrasting settings, and the contrasting way that people are interacting to draw us further into this story. So things go wrong in this blitzball tournament and the force fields crash. The whole world is being attacked by this giant monster. It's obvious that this is not normal. People are running around in panic, there's not any kind of warning sirens, there doesn't seem to be any military response, all the kind of things you would expect if this was an average day in the life. So Tidus runs out of the stadium and he runs into Auron. And Auron is so cool. He is going to be a major character in this story. I don't want to spoil it too far, but it's obvious that Tidus and Auron know each other. He's got like a sort of substitute father figure kind of vibe, where Tidus didn't like his dad. He seems to really care about Auron. They seem to have an affectionate relationship going on. And Tidus seems to be really surprised that Auron isn't surprised about what's going on. So this lets us know that this guy's going to be kind of our mystery too. And that's really cool to know, like, oh, this guy, they have a friendly relationship and he's also going to be the mystery vehicle who knows more than everybody else. I just like that dynamic. I like that I felt like I knew this person really well and we were very close, and I came to find out that he's been holding back the whole time, and now I'm going to have to slowly pull information from him. So we do a kind of tutorial thing, and we touch the big monster that's being called Sin, and we end up separated from Auron. So just, keep Auron in the back of your mind. He's coming back, but we, Tidus, don't know any more about him. And now Tidus is in this really cold place that's not at all like the world he used to live in. Everything is ruined. There's no working technology. It's just rubble and there are no people around. Everything seems to be very silent and somber. And we, the players, right away think like, hey, is this even the same world as the one that we started off in? Like, has he been teleported to another dimension or another world? There's nothing here that is similar to what we saw in the beginning, to what we played in this privileged high-tech society. And we get to meet another character who's going to be a major player later in the road, Rin. And I really like this meeting of Rin too, because, right away we know she's kind of fun and bubbly. She's got like this spring in her step when she does fight scenes. And, she's sort of smarmy. She has a little attitude. She doesn't back down from things, but you can also see that she's inquisitive and energetic, and all of that. Right away, I was attracted to this character. When I did my first playthrough, I rushed through a lot of the play because I knew eventually we'd get this character back. I don't want to play the game without her. I was like, just take me to the point where she comes back. I need her right now. More Rin in my life. And as I've gotten older, and I've replayed the game multiple times, the same way you would go back to a favorite book and read it multiple times, I've been able to wait longer and further appreciate more mysteries and other things that are going on in the story. But first time round, Rin was like an A+. I almost wished that Tidus and Rin got together instead of Tidus and Yuna, but the Tidus-Yuna love story is so strong. It's so all-encompassing and epic, and it feels inevitable. Like there's no other way to tell the story. And that's part of what I love about just the single narrative as opposed to multiple narratives. You can really see the writer talent here come through, where they knew where they were going, and everything thematically, plot-wise, character-wise, lines up and drives to this point. I think this game is better because there's only one ending. There's only one foreseeable future. I love it. I love the character interplay. I love that you can see possible other relationships for Tidus but at the end of the day, you know that him and Yuna are perfect together. Sin comes and he messes things up, and Tidus gets pulled away from Rim. And the first time this happened, tragic. I was so sad. I was like, no, I wanted to be with Rin forever. But that's just not what is in the narrative for us. And this is when we get to meet our main players. So we get to meet Yuna, Lulu, Wakku, and Kilmahri. And of the four of these, I'll say that Kilmahri is the weakest. I didn't really care about him or his story. I tried to do a Kilmahri love story, like where I just focused on Kilmahri's story and focused on him as a character. And I just think that his magic system and his overall silence in a cast of characters who are talking and emoting doesn't do him any favors. The voice acting, the story beats, all of that comes together to really draw you into the other characters. And strong silent type just doesn't fit well in the Final Fantasy X narrative. If there was one feedback I have, it's that you could skip Kilmahri. But here's the thing, his existence in the game doesn't take anything away from the other characters. Everyone else still gets full time, still gets a big story. So I don't begrudge Kilmahri's existence. I just think if you had to cut something, it would be him. And these quick beats in the story where we get a little taste of what Tidus's life was before he came to Spira. We get a brief meeting between Tidus and Rikku, and now we're here actually starting the story. There's so many false starts in this story, and that's great because it leaves it open to the player for questions. When will we go back to Tidus's home? Will we go back to Zanarkand? That's his home, Zanarkand. Will we go back to that crazy ruins place where we met Rin? Are we ever going to go underwater on that adventure again? What about this home place for Yuna, Wakka, and Lulu? Like, what's going on here? You know, there's so many questions. We get such an immediate sample of so many different things. It's really good. And two, we've gotten to meet our whole cast, even though we're not going to get to interact with the full cast right away. Now, I've got all the main characters. So structurally, these jumps and these little scenes with them are really great because they have me wanting more. They've introduced me to all my key elements, and they've started to set a strong sense of place and location in this world for me. And now that we're here on the island, we get Yuna's story, and really this is a Yuna and Tidus love story, so we get to learn that her father's dead and her mother's passed away as well. Her father was something called a summoner, which Yuna is also, something that ties both Yuna and Tidus together. They take after their fathers. And Yuna's father is super famous, just like Tidus's father was in his home, except that Yuna's father is famous because he brought this thing called the Calm, and that's when you defeat Sin and he goes away for a while so he doesn't continue to hurt the local townsfolk and whatnot. So, I mean, Yuna's father is way more important than Tidus's father. The one-to-one between Blitzball and summoning is not quite there. The other thing that's not there is that Yuna loves her father, loves his selflessness, loves, I guess, the relationship they had, misses him dearly, and is following in his footsteps, partly because of her own sense of duty, but also because she wants to be like him. She wants to give Spira the same time that was free of this monster tormenting them that her father gave him. It makes us ask questions about Tidus because we can see that Yuna is following her dad from an act of love, and we don't know why Tidus followed his dad. So even though they have like these one-to-one comparisons and similarities that sort of line up and show they're going to be foils of each other, character comparison, and romantic partners eventually, it also starts getting us to ask more questions, and it keeps drawing us in. You know, there's all these little moments, character-wise, plot-wise, that pull you in, that make you ask questions, make you want to know more as a player. And any good story should do this. And then, of course, too, we have the Wakka and Lulu relationship, where in the beginning they're sort of like friendly adversaries. They feel like they should be friends, period, and maybe even dating. But there's something in the way of that. there's a resentment there that we as the players don't understand yet, and it develops and sweetens as we go into the story. So all of that's really exciting, and they start off on a journey together. And just like in the beginning of any kind of journey, there's these sweet moments, these tender moments, there's a hopeful note, and it gets crushed right away while they're traveling because they run into Sin again. And even though you as the player, you play and you push Sin away so he doesn't hurt Yuna or anyone in the party, he goes to this other island town and decimates it. There's nothing left. It's all just wreckage, and there's even very few survivors, maybe like 5 or 10 people, and there's a ton of people who have passed away. So right away, the other thing that we're seeing is even though Tidus keeps having these interactions with Sin where he survives, and it might have made us think that Sin wasn't a big deal, now we can see that he is, at least to these townsfolk, that they're not so lucky as Tidus has been, and that people are dying all the time from these attacks. There's really nothing they can do to stop them, and there's nothing they can do to protect themselves or to further survive. Anytime they build up, it seems like Sin comes and tears it down. So this also gives us more weight to Yuna's mission and makes what she's doing more important. I want to jump over to some of the visual elements of this story, because it's not just a story on paper. Even though all these things I've talked about are really compelling, would be a really interesting book, it's something that you're watching and playing. So there's the visual and the audio cues as well. And the first thing is, as I said, Final Fantasy X is the first 3D Final Fantasy that was ever attempted, and it's beautiful. To me, and I've played lots of Final Fantasy after, and I've also played earlier Final Fantasies too, but they never did better in creating cinematic cutscenes than they did for Final Fantasy X and X-2. When I first saw it, I was really excited, and I thought that things would just continue to improve as technology improved, but it seems like the quality that are in the cutscenes and that are in the overall visuals, the care that's there in 10 and X-2, it never improves. This is the best, as good as it gets. Even though there's technology now where you could create better cutscenes, better animations, it never gets better than this. To be fair, it's stunning. It was stunning at the time. The HD remaster continues to be a breathtaking experience. Highly recommend it. The other thing is, for me, I love bright, fun colors. I love funky, offbeat things. So for me in particular, this story speaks to me because Final Fantasy X is full of bright colors. And contrastingly, the story itself is pretty dark, and some of the saddest and most dark moments narratively are filled with this bright, ephemeral, spiritual energy. And that's really cool because it keeps your interest visually, it keeps you focused on what's going on, and it also forces you to think about how just because something is beautiful or colorful doesn't mean that it's good. And that's a powerful statement as well, and it's the kind of statement you could only make in a visual medium. The other thing that's worth noting is that this is fully voice acted, and the voice acting is great. I don't know sub to dub comparison. I've only ever listened to the English version. Sorry, all you sub people out there. I know that I'm probably missing something, but I just like when there is the option for people to hear the story in an audio version instead of having to read it while something I don't understand is playing sound-wise. But the acting is great. I think they did great with the Japanese to English translation. I felt like I understood everything that happened, and like there was deep and rich nuance. And the voice acting really sold it. Like, I believed in Tidus and his struggle. I believed in his troubled relationship with his father, him slowly coming to terms with Jet over the course of the story. I believed his commitment to help Yuna get through the calm and survive where her father hadn't. I believed that he slowly became more caring towards her, that he slowly better understood Spira and started to understand how serious everything going on was. He understood his own place of privilege and had to step back and rethink some things in his life. And not only that, but that he had to, while he was rethinking things that were important in his life and privileges he didn't even know he had. He was also trying to figure out how to step in and help these people that he's come to care about. All of that's really moving. And eventually it comes to a point where Tidus learns information the others don't have. He carries it quietly, this secret burden of his own demise, and it mirrors the way that earlier Yuna didn't want to talk about the fact that she was going to die by providing the calm. Now Tidus sees that for him to provide an eternal calm for all of Spira, he's not going to be able to survive. He's probably going to cease to exist. He is so committed to Yuna and to helping the people of Spira. That's something that he's gained in his journey, and you believe that he's gained this in his journey, that he just quietly continues to push his party that way. And he keeps committed that this is going to be his purpose, his driving goal. He's gonna get rid of sin forever for everyone, even at the cost of his own existence. And the last visual element I want to go over is general character creation and world building, place setting. Because designers did a wonderful job making each character look unique and making it feel like their look had a purpose. With Wakka, for example, he is in some traditional blitzball wear that he wears the entire time, and he fights with his blitzball. And really being the captain of the blitzball team, his care and intensity for this sport is his defining characteristic, and they help get this across in the clothes that he's wearing. They help explain that this is who Wakka is. You know, if sin wasn't a thing in his world, he would have been Tidus. He'd have been all about blitzball, and in fact, some ways he'd have been more than Tidus, because Tidus is just like a famous blitzball player in his world. It's just a thing he does. Wakka is really committed to it. He's like living, breathing that. And that's where he gets some of his leadership skills and some of his sense of what's fair and what's not fair, his adherence to rules. All of it sort of ties back in, and you get to see that in a snapshot with his wardrobe. But also the places do very well making themselves distinct. Like Bavel versus the Calmlands versus Mount Gazette. All these places feel distinct, and they make sense with their location on the map and their history. All of that pairs really well together. So I can tell just at a brief glance which city or which place in the map I am. You know, I wouldn't mix up the Moonflow with the Thunder Plains. They're very different visually. And they match where they are in the map and where you are in your journey. They project a different feeling and theme. And it helps break up monotony, because if I were traveling through a bunch of places that all looked the same and, you know, killing a bunch of random monsters on my way, I'd get bored. You know, grinding, killing random monsters eventually gets old, even if that's a thing you like to do. So all these visual changes that show progression also help keep your player entertained. They help let the player feel like they're leveling up through this grinding, they're achieving something. And not just growing player levels, but physically moving throughout a world. And even while they made everything distinct like that, they did very well with the temples, for example, making all the temples have some elements that were the same and familiar. So no matter if you're in the temple for Infrit or the temple for Shiva, they have unique things for the aeons that are presented, but at the same time, they have elements that are the same. In this case, they use spheres and some symbols and holders, but you know you're in a temple. You're like, all right, so here's the special glyph sphere, here are the designs that I see in the temple, here are the statues that pass summoners. These things let me know I'm in a temple. Even though one is a winter theme one and one is an electricity theme one, all of them are part of a cohesive faith that use the same kind of symbols, even while they incorporate local decor or special personalizations because of the aeons they house. The other thing we have to talk about when it comes to Final Fantasy is the music. Oh, the music is so good. Final Fantasy traditionally has good music. 10 in specific, I believe, was this composer's first time doing a video game, and it's beautiful. You can enjoy it as it is within the original games, but it's also really quite moving on piano as well. And I think the music really helps it. If we go back to the first beat in the story where Tidus asks us to listen to his story, which great voice acting there, very compelling. What also props that intro up is the music. The slow piano down and up, the pauses. It gets everything across to you that you need to know. It lets you know you're in the middle of a quiet moment, whether that's because a battle has just passed with losses or we're preparing to go into a battle. We don't know when we first see that scene, but we do know that we're in a quiet and somber moment, and it's because of the music that we know this. And likewise, there are other parts of the game, and the music, whether we're going into a battle or we're transitioning to a different town, it helps set the feel and the mood. It helps get the player ready for what's going to happen, and it just makes you feel more like you're in the game instead of on the sidelines. Last but not least is going to be gameplay, and Final Fantasy X does really well with this too. They have a level up system where they use the sphere grid, and it is a grid that has different kinds of power-ups like increasing strength or magic, as well as moves like learning Fierga or Armor Break, all laid out on a grid, and your characters move across it using levels, and they can gain these things using these spheres that you collect in the world. So there is limited kind of moves you can make and limited kind of power-ups you can do based off of what spheres drop and based off of what kind of levels they gain by being in battle. It lets you customize the players a lot. Like, they don't have to learn any technique you don't want them to learn. Say you have the black mage, for example, and you decide you don't want her to learn any black magic. You're gonna teach Lulu a bunch of other techniques. That's fine. You can get a level sphere, pop her over, and stick her in someone else's sphere grid, and she can be, I don't know, the distance fighter if you want, where she can just throw her Kate Sith and use power that way. You can level her up in a different way. It's not easy to do that, but it is an option. So if you wanted to customize your character out, you could. And if you wanted to challenge yourself by doing a certain kind of run where you change the character's designations up, you could do that too. So it gives you some great replayability, but it also makes your journey the first time around feel like it's yours. Because you don't have to teach them everything. And you can skip certain routes, or you can go ahead and go down every single path meticulously and have a perfect character. So that feels like you're achieving something and very satisfying, and it feels like as the characters progress in their story narrative, they're also leveling up and gaining skills and abilities that match, or that could match if you wanted them to. The other thing that's great is battle is turn-based, and I love turn-based. I don't really like real-time, like click really fast, make decisions quickly. I can stop and I can really think about it. I can play through all of the different options, and some choices, like for example, if you use Rikku a lot, when she steals or when she uses an item she steals, sometimes she gets double turns back to back. So instead of closing with Rikku and letting the boss hit you, you could steal something off the boss and then turn around and use it right away. Like the way the turns are change. And you can see that in the sidebar. So that gives you the advantage there. And I love that element too. It gives it more thought. And some characters that are much faster than other characters but don't hit as hard have an opportunity to have more play, because you could hit twice with them if you plan the right series of attacks. Outside of battle, there's some mini games that go on in Final Fantasy X. I have always struggled to get into Blitzball. For me, the first time I played, I was so invested in the story. I so much wanted to go forward and just push through with motion. I couldn't wait for the next part of the story, the next thing to line up. I'm kind of an impatient person. Blitzball just wasn't a thing for me. To get Wakka's ultimate weapon, you do have to play Blitzball. So when I went through a completionist run later, I did play the game, and I got to see that there's quite a bit of nuance in it. It's kind of fun to play once you know the story and you get into like a quiet part in the story, you can just go across Sphera and play Blitzball for a little while. And I think this is great. It really enhances playability. It gives you something else to do. If you're one of those people that doesn't like too much intensity, or that is more patient than I am, you can go ahead and stop your forward progress, slow the game down, roll it back, and play through Blitzball as part of the things to do. When I first played, I loved the Aeons, and I was committed to collecting all of them, which I did, and I've done multiple times. But it's really cool that there's these major Aeons, and then there are these secret ones that you kind of have to go out of your way to find. And in particular, when Final Fantasy came out, guides and online guides, they weren't the same they were now. It really was like uncovering a secret and sharing it with a friend. A lot of times when you learned about these things, like the hidden Aeons, or when you learned about how to get ultimate weapons. So that was kind of a fun thing to do at the time, but even using guidebooks is still fun, and it's still really fun to watch other people figure it out or work their way through it in videos. I just enjoy that element, like collecting the ultimate weapons, getting all of the Aeons, that kind of thing was fun for me. Part of what I like about games is collecting everything. So for me, it's like the gotta catch them all is true in every game I play. So there was a lot of other side mechanics to keep you interested. There's just so much about Final Fantasy X. I could talk about it forever. I haven't even talked about any of the villains or side characters. I haven't given full character plots or even a full story plot for this video game. And I haven't talked about all the different side mechanics. I've barely scratched the surface of all the different gameplay elements that are involved. You need to check out a few reviews and summaries for your own if you haven't played the game, maybe watch a few playthroughs, or just pick it up and play it for yourself. I am going to wrap up this particular video. I feel like I hit the major things I love about Final Fantasy X. I could keep coming back to Final Fantasy X over and over again, and I could find something new, or I could find another element or nuance that I could pick up on and really enjoy and dig into. And I think that's the hallmark of a great story, that every time you view it or listen to it, you find something new or some new element you want to dig into and explore. I don't think there's any higher compliment than the fact that you could continue forever discussing similarities and differences. So I hope you guys enjoyed this journey with me. Minimally, you got to see me look just so fabulous in my make your own Final Fantasy X character look. If you guys are interested, I do have full photos of them, and they're available at my Facebook group. So you can go ahead and take a look at my Facebook page to see all of the photos of me posing like this. I had fun, which is what's important. And I hope you guys had fun too. So thanks for sticking with me. Next week we're going to do another workshop it, and it's going to be The Sworn Saga by Kate Avery Ellison. Oh, look! And I got one Willow appearance before the end of this video. So, winning! Anyways, thanks for making it to the end of this video. Thanks for listening to me just gush about something I love. And I hope to see you guys again, same time, same place, Wednesdays at 7. See you. Bye!